we're back. So I'm going to pick up where I left off there. We only have a few to go, but I didn't want to run into a problem with that. So this one is kind of strange, but you might remember Countif is effective for looking at a big mishmash of different symbols and things that stand for something or whatever, and trying to take them apart and figure out what's really going on there, how many there are, etc. So this is really simple, but I do want you to know it. You'll need to know it, right? You'll need to know both if and countif. All right, so once again, we come back here to formulas. We go insert formula. There's a possibility that you will have countif sitting near the top, as I do, because you've used it before. But if not, you have to use this little search box up here and hit go to go find it. All right, countif. Now, remember that what countif is doing is it's looking at the same range of cells over and over again and looking for different things. And it will count them up and tell you about them. So in the first case here, the range, this is week 1, right? We can see this. We're organizing our thoughts by what's right here. So I simply drag across there. Now, that's fine. That's the area to look. But if I don't put in the criteria, I'm not telling it what to count. So let's see. This is for sunny, and that's done by a little lowercase s. So I confirm, and I've got 2. Now, what's kind of cool about this is if I drag this down, it should work, right? So, and then you can always tell, like if you're ever wondering, how is it getting this? Find a cell for an example, double click, and you'll see the cells that are being used, right? You'll see the formula as well. Now, I don't want to change anything about that. I just wanted to point that out. And then the kind of annoying thing about countif is you go back and you do it a couple of other times, but here's the thing. You're using exactly the same range every time. Every single time you're looking at the same range. And it makes perfect sense because, of course, it's this clump of information that we're looking at for different things. In this case, it's rainy, so our criterias are here we have mixed, and again, I'll just go insert function, countif. Oop, no. That was weird. Oh, let's use this, right? There we go. All right. So once again, last time, same range, different criteria. Okay. There we have it. And of course, this bottom thing for total here, you would not drag on autopilot right down there. You would just get yourself back to the Home tab, hit Auto Sum, confirm, and drag it across. All right, a couple more here. Boop. We're now down to pivot tables, and we just have some very typical sample data for pivot tables. Remember, the point of pivot tables is to take information which, just looked at straight on, is so dense and dull and kind of meaningless to the brain, which just, it wants to see things organized in a way that makes more sense to it. In just a regular data sheet like this, there's simply too much stacked up together in ways that don't tell us much for us to just easily pull it apart. So pivot tables run like this. Got your data, go to insert. Now, we have for charts and for pivot tables a recommended thing, right? Now, I'm not going to this time around because they tend to show you basically really simple versions of what's going on there, and I might want something a bit more complex than that, right? So it's good for some simple solutions, but not very creative. So I'm going to just go ahead and click pivot table, right? this is just basically, that's the range, new worksheet, okay? Now I'm going to say okay. And my screen is kind of wide here, but the gist of this is when you create this new sheet, right? Like if I look along the bottom here, let me come over a little further. First of all, you see we're on sheet 2, brand new sheet generated by Excel. Over here we have, when this thing is up on screen, we realize we're in the middle of making a pivot table. These are the pivot table tools. And then down here we have filters, rows, columns, and values. And this just comes down to experimenting with the positions of these categories until we see something that suddenly makes a lot of sense, right? So let's say we want to do something. I'm just doing this practically randomly right now. I put categories under rows. I put columns under branch. I guess I'll put month. I don't know. Again, let's be random. I'll put month down here too. And then, of course, what always is going to go under values is whatever numerical information is sort of an outcome of whatever's taking place here. Now, honestly, this doesn't look too bad. There's a few things to notice, like when you do a nested thing, like here's month underneath category, then you get a little drop down. Here's the category that are right here. And then when I click the category open, I see the months. Right? So it's pretty neat. That's a nice way to do it. You can tell, of course, that what we're looking at then are here are the different places, right? Here's DC, Miami, New York. There's always a little awkwardness to this that's kind of strange. Here's our grand total for things. Now, that's not bad, but I want you to be able to kind of flip things around and try things out. Now, just immediately, my brain looking at this finds it much more difficult to get what's going on, right? So I don't like that very much. What about if I do branch under category? Now I've got something kind of similar to what I did before. So here's the type of loan, here's the branch where things were taking place, and here's the months, dividing things up at the top. So pivot tables are really not bad. They're pretty easy to do. They're dynamic and kind of nice to know. And here is a last little reminder about this. You may want to filter it, right? So I'm taking one of these very few fields of information we've got, category, and I'm putting it under filters. Now, what just happened, of course, is that the pivot table up here became more simple. So here's DC, January, how much they made, grand total at the end, and all that, right? And up here, we have category. So now we have a very quick way to say, all right, tell me what happened with home equity loans, right? And you see it's labeling it up here. And now that's exactly what we're seeing. It's a very nice dynamic way to view data and make better sense of it and to show it to people so it makes better sense to them as well. Now, when you're doing a test for me, I'm just kind of taking it for granted that what you're going to do is you're going to create a new sheet. Notice that the pivot table sheet is right here. And here's the sheet that was just created for it just to the left. Here's how you rename a sheet. And I'm going to just put in something. I just double clicked it, by the way, in case that didn't come across. I'm going to call it pivot EX, for example, right? So when you do a pivot table for me or a chart or whatever, I like you to associate it with which question you're answering so that it makes a little bit more sense in grading the thing. All right. Let's see. Let's come one more over here. I guess we only have one left. I should have divided it up a little earlier. Here, we have a thing that says linked data. Now, this is pretty straightforward. So we're linking cells live so that the contents of some location elsewhere in the sheet will show up where we tell it to, right? So here we have show the contents of cell D14. Now, in this blank, sheet that we've got out here, basically, there's obviously one guy. Here it is. Here's D14, right? And you actually see kind of a triangulated highlighting on that. Now, you don't have to actually click in this at this point. You're always going to click where the answer is supposed to appear. That's your starting point. Now in this case, this is the simplest thing in the world, and people have more trouble remembering it. This is so simple. You're basically just calling the information in that cell to appear here by going equals cell. That's it. That's the whole formula. Bink. And we're seeing the contents of that cell, right? Equals cell. Now that's if you're lucky enough that the information is on the same sheet, right? That's very straightforward. But here we have just a couple of examples of live linking data from elsewhere in a workbook, right? So here we have show the overall profit and loss outcome for the restaurant budget, right? So there we are. Now, in this case, I'm just going to start by typing equals. The next step is go to the sheet with the thing you're looking for, and remember what the thing is too while you go. The profit loss outcome for the restaurant budget. So equals, click the sheet tab. Here's the total profit and loss right here. And if you look up here at the formula being constructed, we see equals, the sheet, the cell, right? With a couple of little pieces of syntax to tie that together. Then I'm just going to click confirm because I'm finishing that up. And there it is. I'm seeing it, right? So this is actually pretty easy too, right? Again, it's following the same basic logic as the first one, equals this cell. It's just, if necessary, it's traveling to it across sheets. So let's do it one more time. Show the average temperature in Orlando, all right? So equals, and this one, I think this was various. Nope, it was details, right? So let's see, here's Orlando, and here's the average temperature. Wait, is that what it said? Sorry, this is me messing up. Let me go back to linked data for a minute. Show the average temperature in Orlando. Oh, okay, right. This actually is very simple and straightforward. Do you mind if I cancel and show you again? Because I hate it when I get interrupted by myself, right? So here we go. Equals. And we go to details. And now here are the average temps, right? We already figured this out earlier. Here's the average temp for Orlando. And our formula just says equals this sheet, this cell. Bink. And there we go. And so we've got very different data here. Remember, don't format one thing as something else just because you kind of got in the habit. So, here we have some number, and we don't know what it means. Here we have the profit and loss outcome. Here we have the average temperature, so that should, of course, have a different symbol associated with it. If those had dollar signs on them, that would be dead wrong. All right. Once again, I'm sorry I've been out of touch for a bit. This has been so strange. I will maybe put up another one, and I'll definitely be responsive to your texts. Remember, you can text me if you have questions about things. And I'll be putting up another assignment or two, and we'll be getting the sample final exam up there soon as well. All right. Take care, you guys.